It's a fun time in the NBA as the trade deadline is looming within a couple of months here. One thing that also recently passed very quietly, you may or may not have known, was that on December 16th, teams lost the ability, or after December 16th, since then, teams have since lost the ability to trade a player and then trade them again before the deadline. Reaggregate them elsewhere. That was an interesting thing we were kind of looking forward to, and maybe seeing if there was any sort of trades that happened. Remember Dennis Schroeder, how the Warriors were able to trade for him and then instantly were able to trade him before the deadline a couple months later. Yeah, that's no longer going to be a thing this season because nobody pulled off a trade within that limited window to be able to do so. But there are other teams in the NBA, like the Clippers, as you guys can see, the Kings, the Jazz, etc., who are largely rumored to be potentially selling, maybe even buying. There's a lot of different rumors as it pertains to a lot of these teams, and we're going to dive in today, courtesy of Mark Stein on the Stein Line. That being said, my name is Donnie Freeman. I'm the co-host of the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you do subscribe, as we're trying to hit the goal of 40,000 subscribers sooner than later. Trevor Lane and I keep you guys informed with all the information as it comes out in the NBA, so this is a place to be. That being said, let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to start off with the Kings, though. So, long story short on the Kings, basically they are fielding trade calls for literally everybody, literally everybody except a couple of players. So that just got to throw that out there. But that is the right decision to make, in my opinion. I think it may take them a couple of years to really get rid of these guys, whether their contracts have to expire. Maybe they're able to trade a Sabonis, who's got a really big salary. I don't know, but there is some talk on him here as well. But ultimately, this is the right decision, right? They don't need to be trying to go all in. They don't need to be trying to win now. They need to be just tearing it down. It's unfortunate. I understand it, but they need to just make that decision. And it seems like they are actually leaning towards that. We got a report a couple of weeks ago that the GM was trying to convince ownership, hey, we need like a few years to rebuild this thing. And at that point, like, come on, man, like, what are we doing here? So ultimately, it does seem like that is potentially where the Kings are heading, as teams are starting to gear up for the ability to potentially trade for some of the players on the roster, like LaVine, Sabonis, etc. Zach LaVine is out for at least 1 week with an ankle sprain that was announced on Wednesday, but LaVine and DeRozan have certainly been made available. Sabonis, although currently sidelined by a knee injury, has also been generating no shortage of trade chatter. The Kings have largely been open to fielding trade calls on pretty much anyone on the roster outside of Keegan Murray and Clifford, but have also been telling potential trade partners that they do not intend to attach draft capital to veteran contracts to try to move them. That's the right decision also. Kings making great decisions. You do not put a pick with, say, for example, DeRozan to trade him. You don't put a pick with Sabonis to trade him. That is your problem. You might as well leave the player on the books until they expire if you have to do that. There's no reason to rush at that point. You're losing with the players on the roster anyway. Yeah, the players may want to go. Maybe they may demand a trade or something like that. Maybe they're upset. I don't know. It hasn't really gotten publicly to that point, hypothetically speaking anyway. But do not, whatever you do, give up any assets. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, well, maybe that's the right decision to make because the Kings haven't been the best with making draft decisions anyway. So I don't know. I digress. All right. They also are in a spot with Keon Ellis where they're not trying to use his contract to sweeten any of the deals either. They're not going to throw him in as just this filler to try to sweeten the deal. Okay, well, maybe if you take LaVine, we'll also, just to get you to take him, we'll also throw in Keon Ellis. Like, that's not what they're going to do here. Keon Ellis is somebody that they feel has a lot of value in the NBA, given the league-wide dearth of 3-and-D players currently available right now. I think he's a player that teams may target more in the offseason, though, but I think he may be their most coveted asset that they have on the market right now for various reasons. Great shooter, really, really good defender, and can plug and play in a lot of different teams. And I think that right now with where we are, the NBA wants as many of these guys as possible. Like every roster wants like 5 or 6 of these guys, if possible. But the thing is, that's so confusing to me is why don't the Kings want 5 or 6 of these guys? He is in the age range where it's okay to keep him, I think, in my opinion. But also, like, you're going to need to target Keon Ellis in the future whenever you're ready to be competitive again. Do you not think you'll be ready to be competitive in the next 10 years? I don't really understand that. So we'll see what happens. But it's just weird to me they want to trade him in the first place. But if they could get back good draft capital for him, that could be a thing as well. But maybe they also just don't want to pay him. That could be a thing too. So anyway, one deadline before the trade deadline had passed, surprisingly, with no activity. December 16th, as I mentioned earlier, was the last day of this season that NBA teams could acquire a player and still be able to retrade that player in combination with other contracts on February 4th or 5th without having to wait the usual 60 days required to put a player acquired via trade into a subsequent multiplayer trade package. And that was the qualifier there. If you want to aggregate that salary with another player, you have to do it by then. So we saw 2 deals, remember, on December 15th last season as well. So that is one of the more important things there. Moving on, though, on December 9th, Jake Fisher reported that the Clippers are not interested in trading away Ivica Zubac. However, one well-placed Western Conference observer shared this week that James Harden's status, however, going forward is being monitored closely by various teams, given his career goals at age 36 and the Clippers' dim prospects for digging out of their current hole. More on that in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Ever hear the Sleeper app? Here's a little secret. It's more than just a platform for season-long fantasy leagues. This year, millions of users enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but the app offers so much more. Live stats, real-time updates, and visualizations on all stats. A news feed, this is so important for me. You can get lightning-fast updates on your favorite players and teams. A real-time chat to allow you to engage with other users about individual plays and performances during the NFL and NBA seasons. So download the #1 sports app today. Experience it for yourself. When you use promo code Bulletin, you get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And by the way, they do have a phenomenal promo going on right now as well. Free $20 entry. Go check that out. No deposit required. $20 entry for free. Go check them out. Use the link in the description down below, and that promo code is Bulletin.
All right, so on the Clippers of it all, the interesting thing about this is that over the last few days, there was an article from Ramona Shelburne where she detailed the whole Chris Paul saga. And ultimately, I thought it was interesting as a read because it really showed you who's interested in being competitive and who's not, right? Like who really wants to win, who's not. And a lot of it seemed like it was just egos from the coaching staff and stuff like that. But Chris Paul, and you know how bad things have to be to make me want to take Chris Paul's side on something there? That's insane. Shout out Chris Paul, of course. It made it sound like he's the worst person ever. Anyway, so like, he was trying to just bring a culture to the team that it was lacking, and they were having no parts of it ultimately. But one of the nuggets in there was that they actually apparently think that if they get healthy and are able to pull off a trade or two, they could climb out of the hole they're in. Just to recap, the Clippers are an astounding 6-20, tied for 13th in the West with the Sacramento Kings. I don't know if a team has ever come out of the West in terms of like making it even into the playoffs, starting 6-20. That seems ridiculously hard to do. Do you know what kind of run you'd have to rip off from here to be able to do that? Like to even get to 500 is ridiculous, right? Like that just seems really far-fetched to me. And I understand it though. They don't want to tank. They've got players that want to win now. The team was obviously assembled to try to win something, but at the end of the day, and their pick isn't theirs either, for the record, it's going to OKC too. So like what even is your incentive on just giving up on the season, right? You don't want to do that. So I understand the logic, and you've got to be irrational, I guess, if you're the Clippers. But to say that you think you could come out of that is interesting. So if that is the case, you're really going to have to put your money where your mouth is in this case. And maybe you don't trade James Harden. Maybe you don't trade a John Collins, etc. But the Clippers are really, really floundering here. But will things I can't talk today. Will the Clippers, if things worsen, actually give up Harden in a deal? That's certainly something that could wind up happening if things don't get better, but they seem to think they can get better. But he does mention that Minnesota, just to name one team, is known to be scouring the league at present for a true playmaker. Minnesota's been linked to a lot of guards over the offseason, and during the season, excuse me. Anytime a guard name on the trade market has popped up, if they're a good guard, they have been rumored to be linked to it. So I'm not. I mean, Harden's been really good this year. 26-8-5. I'm just not biting on Harden if I'm Minnesota, but I can understand why they would want to. He's making $42 million player option next season. That's a lot of money. Frankly, the Timberwolves already are ridiculously expensive. I'm not biting on Harden personally. Moving on, We've addressed on multiple occasions already this season that the Jazz are discouraging trade inquiries for Lowry Markkanen, but we should also note that Utah has consistently rebuffed trade interest in center Walker Kessler, who was lost in November to a season-ending shoulder injury. So interesting on that is that Kessler could be somebody that could potentially still be on the move. Some of that is because he's out for the season at this point, but he's also got this contract looming. So what does that look like? It's kind of hard. You're not in a position, if you're Walker, to be able to negotiate much here. Like, you obviously have some wiggle room, but you don't have the leverage to be able to have that conversation like, hey, give me a max. He was never going to get that, but give me $30 million annually. Like, maybe that was something he could have got, but I don't think that's on the table either. So what do you do? Is this a qualifying offer situation where you just try to get a new deal? Do they just decide to trade him to not have to deal with this, right? Kessler will be a restricted free agent in the summer, and the Jazz continue to signal they hope to re-sign him after first capitalizing on their projected salary cap space in the offseason, despite the fact that the side's negotiations on a rookie scale contract extension before the deadline for such deals were marked by a significant gulf. And again, significant gulf. He seemed to think he was worth a certain amount. They did not want to give it to him. Okay, we'll go prove you're worth that. Well, season-ending injury. Now what? Because he still obviously would think he's worth that money. It's not like he's 38 getting a season-ending injury out of his prime and all that stuff, right? So that's where it's interesting. Yet the repeated signals emanating from Salt Lake City indicate that Utah wants to keep Kessler, have not stopped Indiana from expressing trade interest in the promising big man. Kessler and Daniel Gafford are two bigs the Pacers have tried to engage on in recent weeks with an eye towards landing a quality center before Halliburton's projected return from Achilles tear when the next season commences. Yeah, so for the Pacers, losing Turner was a big deal, and they've been trying to they've got some good production out of some of the guys they're playing, like Huff and stuff, but they've been trying to find another really high quality center, especially a defensive center, to put in their front line, right? And so they're going to keep canvassing the market to find that player, and these are a couple that they've been linked to. The Raptors have also been mentioned as a potential Gafford suitor, depending on the course Toronto ultimately chooses in its well-chronicled pursuit of front court help, chasing an all-star caliber big like Anthony Davis or Sabonis, or focusing on veteran targets on more trade-friendly contracts like Gafford or Nick Richards. Adam Silver did do a bit of talking about Terry Rozier recently, and basically the whole thing on that was that we have to find out at the time of the trade if this is a trade we're going to allow to go through with, which is kind of weird to me because Adam's job, in my opinion, to my knowledge, is to be the one to make this decision. What happens in this situation if they're able to trade this? And then also there's some reporting on they have to get together, talk about it, and see what happens from there about whether or not the Heat were sold a lemon. Like, did they get sold a lemon? Because that very much seems to have been the case, right? This stuff was taking place before he even went to Miami. So that's another thing of this as well. But obviously the whole legal ramifications of this, all this stuff is still playing out. It's not in the front anymore. It's definitely something that's just going on in the background, just like the Clipper stuff. It's not gone. It'll pop up eventually, but it's all still around and ongoing. So we'll see what the ultimate fix for that is. But we're going to go ahead and wrap here. A lot of the GMs are currently in Vegas right now, so we'll see what happens. Or in Orlando, I believe, right? I believe they're in Orlando, but we'll see what happens with that overall, because with the GMs being in one central location for the G League Showcase, that could mean that we get some interesting trades, right? Trades traditionally accelerate. All 30 teams are gathered in Orlando for the G League Showcase, which traditionally accelerates trade discussions, even though the February 5th deadline is still weeks away. I can't talk for my life today. It's so frustrating. Sorry about that. I cannot talk today, but hopefully we stumbled, we tripped, we fell, all that stuff through this video. Easily one of the worst videos I've done myself, but it is what it is. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully we got some good info out there. A lot of it ultimately was stuff we already kind of knew, but it is still interesting to see where these teams sit in regards to some of these players. Like, again, Zubac, he's not going to get traded. Potentially, I think he may be one of their best assets, but I can understand why they wouldn't want to trade him. He's a really good center. He was better last year, in my opinion, but he's still a really, really good center. And they need the youth, frankly. It's just, they need the youth, man. And then on the Kings, right? Like, they're not going to put any picks and stuff. And then on the Jazz, there's still this Walker Kessler stuff. There wasn't a lot about Lowry marketing. They've, to their credit, repeatedly said that they don't want to trade him, but everyone remains skeptical because that's what you've got to say, right? You're not going to say, "Oh yeah, he's certainly on the market. Yeah, just give us your best offer." Like, no. You want to keep that under wraps until it's time to pull a trade off, right? You don't want to make it known and get lowballed or anything like that. You love this guy and you never want to let him go. So somebody needs to buy him at a premium to get him away from you, right? So, and Lowry's awesome. So I think he's going to be a really good piece for whatever team potentially lands him if there is a trade. And if not, the Jazz, I mean, they may be a couple of years away from being really good, but I think that there's some bones here on this team with some of the players that they've got, the young pieces they've got, Kessler, if he's healthy and available. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video on the Basketball Bulletin. And hopefully I can talk